to come and present. I'm Karissa Thompson, and I am a Community Engagement Officer for Red Canoe Credit Union. My specific locations are Lakeland Hills, Puyallup, and Graham, but as you heard some of my team members earlier, we serve together all over. So our gift that we get to be in the community is to lift it and support everything that our community needs. So I kind of lucked out with my dream job. We are new in Lakeland Hills area, Lake Taps area, and if ever you can come by and just say hi to the new team, they're super excited to see you and meet everyone. But today, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Today, we are doing a presentation, and it might seem kind of weird because it's, we're financial institutions. So you're wondering, why are we doing something on empathetic leadership? And I guess I can share a little bit of my story. So before I was a community engagement officer, I worked for a financial institution for 15 years. And in that 15 years, I was a corporate trainer. I was a branch manager, and then they would send me to underperforming branches to fix them. Well, one of the things that I learned when going into these underperforming branches is the key component that was missing is a lack of culture and a lack of empathetic leadership. And so I wanted to bring this topic to you today because right now we're in a time where we're doing a lot of Zooms. Maybe we're feeling a little bit disconnected, like we spoke about earlier. We just came up against a election, and we're feeling a little bit divided, maybe. And so this is just a way that you can reconnect not only with your team members, but your clients. And so if you are in a specific role where you don't have employees, this is a great thing to do with your reoccurring clients as well. So I wanted to throw out a couple statistics today, and I wanted to highlight that over half of employees would stay in a lower paying job because they have a great boss. And in addition to that, they look at senior management as being a trusted source as one of the most important things for their satisfaction. A quarter of the employees would leave if there was a lack of respect with colleagues. 88% of employees believe that strong organizational culture is key to business success. And shockingly, 94 executives feel the same. So that's number one, where they can all realize that they have something in common. And this last statistic was really interesting to me. 57% of workers are more loyal, productive, and take less time off when employees feel that their mental health is being supported. And a little bit later in the presentation, we're going to talk about a story where that came up for me. And that was my game changer day. And so before that, I want to just talk about the two topics. Typically, this presentation is like an hour long. And so I had to condense it down quite a bit to fit into 20 minutes. So the two things that we're going to cover today is organizational culture and then team connection. So those two things are the very first things that you can do in your company in order to really set the precedence for the next step of work. And with these two components, if you can really get control over it and get a good practice within it, you'd be amazed at how different your company can feel, not only for your employees and yourself, but also for your clients. So if we define organizational culture, it's a set of shared values, goals, attitudes, and practices that characterize your organization. So something to keep in mind, if I am an employer and I don't spearhead this, I don't lead this from the top, then your employees are going to lead this. And then it's like in their hands, whether or not it's a positive culture or a negative culture. I don't know if any of you ever went to, let's say, a car dealership, and then you have all the salesmen running after you, and then you realize, I'm a sell to them, I'm not a consumer. So if you want to set the pace for your team, there's a few things to consider when doing so. First, coming up with shared values. So as a business leader or a business owner, I can't force my shared values or what I think our shared values should be. I can share with you what our company values are, and then each individual employee finding out what their personal and professional values are that can link into the values of the company. So where I do have control is helping to facilitate that, right? So when I came on to Red Canoe Credit Union, one of the things that I loved was their community service. So as I dug into who they were as a company, I realized part of their values are concern for the community. And as I started working with them and seeing, we do, a Columbus Day seminar with all of our employees, and we do a community service project as a collective, and we all get together and we really feel this in our heart. Well, that's how you illustrate a shared value, right? So a lot of times it can start with leveraging your own company vision. So for example, Red Canoe Credit Union, part of that is concern for their community. So getting those folks together and finding out how personally and professionally they can connect to that is crucial for that company culture. Number two, when you have a new coworker come in or even a new client come in, do you have a mentorship program with them? So what that means is, are you walking them through step by step what they're going to experience in your company? So if it's a new employee, are you mentoring them with an existing employee to really help share and illustrate what the principles of your company are and how they can best fit into it using their talents? And if not, maybe consider having something that represents that. Thirdly, measure your employee engagement with your company. So that looks like doing, annual assessments, doing questionnaires at the end of the year or midterm through the year. One of the things that I really appreciated about the company that I worked for before was they would do a random selection of all different people in the organization, and we'd come together and they would have a professional facilitator, and they would just facilitate out what are things that you're struggling with, what are some solutions that you could see happening. And it just felt like this safe place that we could come and just let any of our struggles out. And at the end of it, they said, we're going to take the top 3, and those are going to be the 3 initiatives for this year. So that was a really cool way to illustrate that they cared about our values, and equally we cared about their values. So again, just a few things to maybe consider if your company is not already doing that, how you can gear into that. Also, shared goals. So a lot of times organizations, they will make goals for their employees and then say, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z. Well, if you take it a little bit further and you get your team members involved in the goal setting, you'll find that there's a lot more buy-in. So letting them help you with the short-term and the long-term goals, this will help them connect a little bit more. I always found that whenever a team plans together, they tend to stay together, meaning you end up getting dedicated employees that are less likely to leave, because whenever they see that year-end goal, they know how their part plays in it, and it's harder for them to disband from that because they know they play an important role. If they're just given these goals, it's almost like they can just take that plate and then move that plate to someone else, and they didn't have any say in it. So again, a team that plans together typically stays together. Number 2, ask your team to set individual goals as well as team goals. So again, if they're looking at it from a full pie and they know how the full pie is going to be made up, but then they look at their little piece of the pie and how they connect to it, then they find that it's more of a responsibility of theirs to meet their individual goal, knowing how it plays into the full team goal. And then the third recommendation is identify what your team needs from leadership to ensuring success. And what that means is specifically asking them the question. So I used to coach my team members once a month, and whenever they'd come in, the very first thing I would ask them, what do you need from me that I'm not giving you currently, or that, that I can be giving you later in your career success? So what are some of the things that I can do for you in order to set you up for success? And oftentimes it was little to nothing. However, just having that open door was a way for them to know that anytime we do coaching, I know for a fact I have an opportunity to ask for something that I need, and I'm going to be listened to. So providing trainings, check-ins, doing accountability meetings, those things will be really crucial to goal attainment. And sorry if I'm going fast, I'm just trying to fit a lot of this in one setting. So we're going to talk about shared attitudes. I had the opportunity to take a training. It was the Walt Disney Experience training. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but it was phenomenal. They will interview people, and they interview you to play a role. So for example, I'm interviewing Cinderella. I need you to play Cinderella all the time. The second that you're out here on the property, you need to be Cinderella, all the way to the street sweepers. So one of the questions that they ask their street sweepers is, how do you feel about answering stupid questions every day? And the street sweepers are like, what do you mean? And they said, well, you are going to have people every single day come to you and say, excuse me, can you tell me what time the parade starts? And, sometimes they may even say, can you tell me what time the 3 o'clock parade starts? Really what they're asking you is, can you tell me where it's at? Can you direct me to it? But because they've never experienced it, this is a new question for them. You will hear this every single day, and eventually it will become a stupid question to you, but it's how you respond in that and how you experience that question 552 times a day as your first time ever. So I thought that was really interesting when they were talking about the attitudes that you carry, that you're always on stage, right? And so same with your team members. What are the shared attitudes that you have? So when people come in, are they being greeted within 3 seconds, or is the phone being answered within 2 rings? And that kind of leads us into the practices, right? So what are your no matter whats? So as a leader, I have to be a certain way with my employees in order for them to mirror that behavior to my clients. So my team, what can my team expect from me in leadership on an everyday basis? So whenever I come in, am I engaging with my employees? Am I doing a check-in with them? Am I remembering their favorite coffee drink? Or if they don't like coffee, what do they like to drink? So what are my no matter whats as a supervisor? Because my employees are my customers. So once you have that down, then you can create those no matter whats for your employees. So your employees, your clients are their customers, right? So they're bending to those folks. So what are their no matter whats? So a lot of times when coming up with some of these practices, it's important to get your team their buy-in and their thoughts on this, because maybe they'll come up with something that you didn't think of. And thirdly, what are the expectations when reporting or correcting bad behavior? So I'm part of a Pierce County Community Engagement Task Force. And one of the companies that we are in partnership with, it's a transit company, and they have this thing called confident conversations. And so in these confident conversations, anytime an employee has an issue with someone else, or anytime they have a problem with upper management, they know they have structured out these confident conversations to have a positive outcome by the end of this conversation. So basically what they do is they have built in a framework to have these difficult conversations, confidently knowing that at the end of it, we're going to get to some fair ground, or we're going to have some positive outcome at the end of it. So I thought that was really cool for them to have as a no matter what. So in your own organizations, what are your no matter whats for when somebody needs to be corrected in their behaviors? And additionally, what's the no matter what's in celebrating good behavior? So before you can just give shout outs to everyone, or make it a big deal and celebrate in front of everyone, sometimes there's employees that don't like that kind of acknowledgement. They want it to kind of go under the rug, or maybe just get an email. So first you have to get to know your employees in order to know how they want to be celebrated. So if we get into the empathetic leadership part and move from the culture part, I don't know if you folks have heard of Simon Sinek, but he does a 22-minute video, and we're going to watch a small part. I think we have time. We're going to watch a 3-minute portion of it. But in his video, Empathetic Leadership, he talks about when we go from, being a junior in our company, meaning, an employee, into management, we can't look at it as being, in charge of people. So it's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. And so we're going to watch a 3-minute video real quick that kind of illustrates that. And then later, Guy is going to send out or have a link to the full 22-minute video because it's pretty fantastic. So let's enjoy this ride.
There are two things that I think that great leaders need to have: empathy and perspective. And I think these things are very often forgotten. Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all we really have to do. And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs, accountants or whatever, right? And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. Because the reason our managers are micromanaging us is because they actually do know how to do the job better than us. That's what got them promoted. Really what we have to do is go through a transition. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and unfortunately some people will never make that transition at all. Which is we have to go through this transition of being responsible for the job and then turning into somebody who's now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. And as I said before, one of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. Like parenting, everyone has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent, and doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. Leadership is the same. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. Remember, you're not in charge, you're responsible for those in your charge.
So I love that video because it just kind of opens up a concept that I think is outside of the norm a little bit, but it can be so powerful. So I'm going to share a story with you all. When I was coming up into management, I had a manager who wasn't flexible at all. I was a single mom of 2 kids, 18 months apart. I came from Tacoma and had to drive to Olympia every day. And if I was even 3 minutes late, just the pressure that I would feel from this manager. And I always told myself, if ever I'm a manager, I don't want to do that to my team members, right? So I ended up stumbling into management at a fairly young age. And I remember the turning point for me where I found that empathetic leadership gets you so much further than what the normal leadership was. So I had an employee who normally she came in, she was bubbly, everything was great. She comes into the branch and, she's not really interacting with anyone. And, she's doing some heavy sighing and you could just tell something was just kind of off with her. So I had a team member who comes in and they said, hey, Karissa, and we'll give her a name of Ashley. Ashley is, kind of cranky. I don't know what's wrong with her. She's kind of bringing down the team. So I decide to pull Ashley into my office and I ask her, I'm like, hey, Ashley, what's going on today? How's your morning going? She goes, I called my apartment complex on the way in. I told them I was moving and they told me if I'm not there by 11 o'clock with a note saying that I want to move out, they're going to charge me for the rest of the month's rent. And I'm just really stressed out right now because my lunch is at 1. Well, I instantly thought, wow, well, this could create an opportunity for a really simple solution to help improve her life. And by improving her life, I'm improving the existence of her support here at work. So I went to one of her teammates that had the earlier lunch and asked, can you switch with Ashley? And then I went over to Ashley and said, hey, I want to know, are you okay with switching lunches so that you can go and give the letter in before 11? And she just broke down into tears and said, are you kidding me? We can switch lunches. And I'm like, yeah, it's as simple as just coming and letting us know and not being afraid of that. And so that moment helped me understand the importance of realizing that we are employing people. We're not telling them, that they can't have any issues. We're hoping that they don't bring issues to the door and through into work. But if it's something that they can't let go of, how can we help bend to them for a minute so that they can solve that and then come to work full-hearted? So fast forward a couple of days, she ended up moving 10 days later. And fast forward to that time, and I told her, I said, hey, on the schedule, I'm going to schedule you in late arrivals because I know what it's like to move into a new apartment and not be able to find anything. And so sometimes it can kind of throw it off. So that next week, do you want to come in later? And I'll tell you, that employee did anything and everything I ever asked her. There was never a time where she said, well, that's not part of my job description. Or, shouldn't I be getting paid more for that? She did anything that I asked her to do because she knew I would do anything she needed me to do for her to be successful at work. And so the importance of empathetic leadership is, how do you connect with your employees, realize that they're individuals, and then help meet their individual needs so they can be successful at work. And I'm not saying be a doormat. I'm not saying, do everything. But what I'm saying is if you can give a little, they'll give a lot. So I learned in that experience that there's 2 ways to lead. One, you can lead in fear. And if you lead in fear, you'll keep people around until they find something better. And they'll produce exactly what their paycheck expects them to produce. But if you can learn to lead with respect, then you can create loyalty and dedication. So that team member will produce your dreams and theirs. There will be 0 limits. And the reason that is because they want to meet and exceed your expectations because you've done that for them. They then turn that respect into mutual respect. So in conclusion, because I know we're almost out of time, I'd like to encourage people to learn how to light a fire within their employees instead of under. When we're lighting fires under people and we're constantly putting pressure on them and, they live in fear of losing their job, they get agitated, they bite at each other, they get to this point where, they're barely making it. And if you can light a fire within them, they're going to surpass all of those limits because that energy comes within their natural ability, right? So creating a culture where we're all in it together. Even me as a leader, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to get in it with you, and we're going to fight through and make anything that we dream possible. So I want to thank everyone and open up the floor for questions. I know I went through that really quickly, but hopefully it was beneficial for everyone. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I have a question, Karissa.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
Doing training.
Okay. Being in management training, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a continuous process. When did you start?
Sure. So about 17 years ago, I started in management, and I was doing, I eventually went into training. So I kind of switched gears and started training branches within the organization that I used to work for. And I did that for about 3 years. And then I flipped back into management, but in a role of going to underperforming branches to fix them. So I would get sent to the lowest performing branches, and they'd send me there and they'd give me a year to clean it up. And really what I would do is just learn about the team members, find out what their strengths were, get them working in their strengths, and then get out of their way, right? And just be a resource for anything that they needed additionally. So really they did it. They thought it was me, but it was really them. And it's because I turned their management communication from fear to respect.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And I can tell you because I have witnessed it, that everybody that ever worked with Karissa are happy people.
I put it in the water.
No, it's just you, darling.
Yeah, it was, whenever we talked about the no matter what, for me, when I was managing people, and even now with, being out in the community, because now my employees used to be my customer and now my community is my customer, right? And so my no matter what was, I always had an open door policy. And so no matter what time of day it was, if you need me, my door is always open and you get all my attention. And I'd have employees that would come in and they'd sit down and they'd be ready to dump something out, and they'd see that I was working on something and they'd say, my stuff can wait. And like they would learn, when to come to me, but they knew that I would always be available for them no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so creating a culture where people feel like they can connect to or find resolution or have answers, it just takes such a weight off of their shoulders. And that's additionally for clients, like for me, it's in the community. I have people who out in the community, they're struggling with something. They know they can come to me and say, Karissa, I have a neighbor who doesn't know where to get their next meal. And they know that I'm going to take time out of my day and care for that person and find them the next meal for, maybe even a month. So, creating those no matter what's for you and your company are crucial. Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions?
It was awesome. Thank you, Karissa.
Thank you, Michelle. If ever in your companies, if ever you want to do any kind of training like conflict resolution, financial literacy, working with diverse personalities, emotional intelligence, any trainings that you can think of that you might potentially need, I might have that in my bank of tricks. And so just let me know, and I'm happy to come and share any of my knowledge. Knowledge is power. And that's how we're really going to lift a community, is just through education and sharing with each other. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, Karissa. That was an amazing presentation. I really enjoyed it. I took lots of notes. And I'm definitely going to go back and watch that full Simon Sinek video. Just like Karissa, I 100% recommend him if you guys haven't watched any of his stuff.
Oh my gosh.
It's really good stuff to watch.
Yeah, I subscribe to him because it's every time I hear it, I'm just like, exactly.
Right.